Welcome to ADVI Connect. My name is Rita Excell and I'm the Executive Director of ADVI, the Australia and New Zealand Driverless Vehicle Initiative. I'm excited to bring to you our ADVI Connect series, where we will be interviewing leaders in automation from around the world. ADVI is a collaboration of organisations that have a shared vision to safely accelerate the introduction of driverless vehicle technology into Australia and New Zealand. We are also the peak body and provide advice to government and industry alike. ADVI has 4 key pillars. These are reach, readiness, regulation and redesign. And the ADVI Connect series is part of our reach pillar. We want to reach out to connect you to what is happening in the industry and connect you with the leading minds from around the world. Today I'm pleased to introduce to you Anne Still, General Manager of Public Policy and Mobility at the Royal Automobile Club of Western Australia. Welcome to ADVI, Anne.
Thank you, Rita. Great to be here.
So tell us about RACWA and why they got involved in driverless vehicles.
Yeah, sure. So RAC exists to be the driving force behind a better WA. So for us, that really means safe, sustainable and connected communities for our members. We have about 1.1 million members in Western Australia, which I think gives us penetration into about 60% of WA households. And as an organisation that's about 115 years old, we've obviously seen a lot of change. But I think in the last decade, we've really seen that change accelerate, particularly when it comes to mobility and technology. And when you're looking at the 4 sort of global megatrends around electric, shared, connected and automated vehicles. So, obviously we wanted to look at this from the perspective of the organisation, but as a membership organisation, it's really critical, I suppose, that we were looking at from a community perspective as well. We really wanted to see what we could do to learn about the technology and position WA to be ready for it. So, we have 3 core objectives around our trials, and they've been our objectives since the very beginning. It's simply to learn about the technology and share that with others, to work with government and industry on a pathway for readiness, and then thirdly, to give the WA community a chance to see and use and experience driverless vehicles while they remained in the early stages of development. I think going even deeper than that, deeper than wanting to sort of be at the forefront of preparing WA for the next 100 years of mobility, we wanted to look at the road safety benefits. Road safety is an issue which the state and indeed RAC has been grappling with for many years. And we wanted to know how many lives this technology could save. It's no secret that WA is consistently one of the worst states in the nation in terms of road safety, in terms of the number of people killed and injured on our roads. And so, the technology doesn't drink drive, it doesn't get distracted, and it seemed like there's a lot of potential there that we wanted to explore. And that's what we've really sought to do. So when we embarked on this, keeping in mind it was around about 2015, we started looking externally for a lot of information, but we decided pretty quickly we needed to source our own vehicle and potentially operate our own trials so that we could start to learn firsthand. And that's exactly what we did. We've been operating for about or more than 3 years now. And we've had more than 16,000 people participate in our trial, which under normal circumstances operates about 5 days a week.
So the IntelliBus has been running since 2016. Can you give us some insight into what it takes to support a program like this for such a long time?
Yeah, sure. I'll do my best. Look, I think if I go back to the very start, there were a lot of challenges. We were doing this at a time where I suppose AV technology and the industry was at a very different stage. Everything really was being done for the first time, from importing the vehicle to securing a special permit, to understanding how we could operate it on public roads, and even how we could test it before we even did that. So there were a lot of bridges to cross. I think first and foremost, we had a team who was really prepared to push the boundaries, and an organisation that supported the project, and I suppose accepted a certain level of risk that came with it. There was risk certainly for the team, but there was risk for the organisation in terms of our reputation and brand. We wanted to keep safety at the forefront. That's linked to our DNA. There was nothing more important to us. But we were also prepared to accept some failures. And ultimately, some of those hard days and those failures really put us on the road to success. So I think in those early days, an absolute and true commitment by the organisation to the program was critical. And we certainly had support from our board, our CEO and our executive management to be able, to work with agility, which really helped. I mentioned the team, and I would say that equally having a talented, competent and committed team is absolutely critical in terms of operating a program like this. We have a technical team led by David Brodhag and incorporating Julian Richards. And I think the work that they're doing is nation leading, particularly around the testing and evaluation of AVs. And it might even go beyond that and be comparable in terms of what other countries are doing. The testing and evaluation part is absolutely critical for us because, as I say, that all comes back to safety and really understanding what it is that we're putting on West Australian roads. We also have an operations team, so Julian Gomez and Amy Austin, and they do great work around the daily operation, so making sure that the trials are operating smoothly, obviously being responsible for engagement on the front line with members, and then working with our team of driverless vehicle chaperones to really deliver what is a successful trial. I think the other thing is partnerships. So we've been extremely fortunate throughout the trial to have formed some really deep collaborative partnerships. So that's with local government, particularly the City of South Perth, where we operate our trial. We saw very early on that they were an innovative local government, and the guidance and support they've provided has been fantastic. Similarly, we work very closely with the WA State Government and the WA Department of Transport around permits and the like. And so those collaborative relationships are really critical to the program. And then, I suppose the nuts and bolts are always really important as well, and that's budgets and resources and all of the elements that go into actually making it possible. And we enjoy an awful lot of support from the organisation. I think, I feel comfortable saying that our council and our board certainly do believe in the goals of the program.
Well, that's truly an amazing achievement, especially when you consider that back in 2015, those skill sets that you have now didn't exist in your organisation, nor did they exist in Australia. So I note that you've also provided support to other trials in Australia. Can you expand on the role that you take in these trials and the services that you can provide?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Look, it's been an extremely rewarding part of the program. So obviously in commissioning the vehicle, and I suppose, one of the responsibilities of going first with a trial like this is that we were eager to pass on what we had learned to other organisations, and I suppose smooth the road for those who are coming after us. So if you think back, we've learned an awful lot around mapping and commissioning the vehicles. So I suppose setting them up to operate, particularly on public roads. And we've put a lot of effort into sharing those learnings with other organisations. We've now deployed vehicles on behalf of others in Victoria, in New South Wales, and in a number of other locations around Australia. That entails about a 2-week process of providing technical expertise, including, helping with the initial site assessments, moving to detailed technical assessments, looking at everything from, 3G and 4G connectivity, to traffic conditions, and all sorts of elements that go in to making the trial workable, to doing the mapping, sometimes through several evenings and nights, working with Navia in France to render maps, and then really to deliver a polished and final map to various organisations so that they can operate their trials. And we get as much out of working with others as I hope they have done out of us.
Yes, here at ADVI, we have identified that projects that have relied on overseas expertise have been impacted by COVID-19. We believe that this also provides a great opportunity for Australian experts with these skill sets to fill the gap that's been presented by the inability for people to travel from overseas to service these projects. We're working very closely with those people whose projects have been affected, and also our partners who have got the expertise to bring these people and organisations together and ensure that we can create this expertise in Australia.
Okay, well, what we have done is actually paused our trials, certainly our public-facing trials for the time being. So that's our South Perth trial, which, as you mentioned, has been running for more than 3 years. We've also paused our Imagine Schools program, and we have postponed the launch of our next regional demonstration, which was actually due to launch in Geraldton on the 7th of April. But look, it was an easy decision to make. The well-being and the health and safety of the community, our members, and as well as our staff, is obviously top of mind. And we're in very trying and interesting times. Although we have paused all of those elements to our program, it certainly hasn't slowed work. We've actually taken the opportunity to advance a lot of planning activities. And we've taken the opportunity to, I suppose, review how we are operating currently to see where we could make improvements. We do have a phased plan in place where we hope to increase the complexity of our routes and even operate on different routes over time. And so we've started to advance a lot of that work, which is, in some ways it's a luxury to have some time to do that. But there's no escaping the fact it has been disruptive to our plans, but we look forward, I suppose, to restarting at the appropriate time, and it certainly is a postponement and not a cancellation. I think looking more broadly about the impact on the industry, I think that it could affect the timing of a lot of projects. So we are seeing some suppliers and organisations to varying extents delaying non-business critical spend. And obviously that can run on to affecting the delivery of elements of projects. So there could be some delays around the deployment of the technology. I think more likely is that with the situations around lockdowns, we might see that projects and organisations really struggle to get the technical support from their suppliers overseas. So with border and travel restrictions in place, and even some organisations overseas completely closed for the time being, it's going to be difficult to be able to access some of the maintenance and perhaps supervision support that has been there in the past. So I think that's something that a lot of projects are going to have to work through in the coming months to a year. And then obviously for any trials like ours with a key objective engaging the public and really giving people an opportunity to participate, the rules around social distancing have a huge impact, and that's obviously just a bridge we need to cross when we can.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your insights into RACWA and how you've pioneered the deployment and awareness of driverless vehicles. It also should be noted that you're actually pioneers of putting electric vehicle charging infrastructure on highways in Western Australia. And that's an investment of your own resources and funding to bring these new transport modes, as they were at the time, to the focus and awareness of your members. So congratulations on doing that with driverless technology and also with electric vehicles. So now I'm really interested to learn about what's next. What are some of the other projects that you can share with us that you're going to be working on or are currently working on?
Well, one critical piece for us has been the integration of V2I technology with our shuttles. So we're working with Navia, our supplier, and also Coda Wireless, a South Australian company, to integrate our shuttle with the WA SCATS traffic signal system. So what we've actually done is replicate an intersection that we want to traverse from our trial site in South Perth, and we've replicated that at an off-road track that we use for testing. The team has now completed, I think, more than 600 tests around trying to make sure that that technology is working as safely as possible. And so we've been working on that for a little bit over a year, and we very much see that as the next step in terms of allowing us to increase the complexity of our trial and also allowing us to move to the next phase we have planned in terms of our route. We're also looking, as always, at future trials and how we can expand and build on what we're doing. And for us, that probably means looking at opportunities around on-demand vehicles. And so we're continuing to, I suppose, work and build relationships with international providers and to try and, I suppose, push the Australian agenda, like ADVI does, forward with them as well. And then we have a broader group mobility program. So that's really around RAC's response over the next decade to those four mega trends I mentioned around electric, connected, shared, and automated. So there's a bit of work happening around the organisation.
So you've mentioned about the trials that you have run and are planning to run in regional areas in Western Australia. And for those of you that are not part of the Australian community, you need to understand that Western Australia is the largest state in Australia, and there's quite a big expanse of distance in some of the regional locations that RAC operates in and where these trials will operate. So can you tell us whether there's a different or higher complexity in running a trial in regional areas when compared to urban areas?
Yeah, sure. So 22% of our membership resides in regional WA. So I think going regional with the program for us was always a goal of the team. I wouldn't say that delivering the trial in regional areas is more complex, keeping in mind that we're still operating in regional cities and towns. But I would say the logistics are absolutely greater. So obviously picking up the whole operation and moving that to a new location, as well as basing a team in the regions for the period of the demonstration as well. So certainly there's some logistics involved. For us, the regional demonstrations have really been possible due to the relationships we've built with local governments. So that's the City of Busselton, and obviously in planning the City of Geraldton demonstration as well. Having that local partnership has been integral in opening up access to local suppliers and really just access to information has been really critical for us. We also find that regional people are very engaged. They are truly interested in the technology. And we have wondered if that is linked to the road safety element. They're obviously really interested to know how some of the technology can influence road safety. And obviously with 70% of road trauma happening in WA's regions, it's certainly something that's part of their daily lives, unfortunately. So we get great engagement from people in the regions, which is good. We also see, I suppose not looking at level 4 and 5, but we see a lot of interest around the driver assist technologies and the fact that all of the investment in trying to deliver level 4 and 5 driverless vehicles is already starting to have an impact in terms of the driver assist features that are available in new cars and in the driven fleet today. So there's a lot of interest from people in the regions around things like the lane keeping and emergency braking and all of those different systems and sensors which are starting to come through in the fleet. I'm sure, and we haven't experienced it, but when you move out of the regional towns and cities, I'm sure that the complexity of a regional trial would grow, particularly from a connectivity perspective, and then depending on what vehicles are being used. So, for example, a freight trial moving at much faster speeds, possibly platooning, would be a lot more complex. So yeah, I think we're just on the journey, and there's a lot more to be achieved in terms of deploying these vehicles to the regions.
So you've also mentioned your education program that you run for primary schools, the Imagine program. Can you tell us a bit about this program and in particular what insights, if any, you get from students around their acceptance or concerns about these new technologies?
Sure. So we launched the Imagine program in September 2019. And in the short term time that we've been operating it, we have delivered it to about 40 schools and about 1,300 school children. And we're delivering it in partnership with the City of South Perth. Basically, they come along on a full day free excursion with us, and they take part in a number of activities throughout the day. So that includes a ride on the RSN telebus. They do a tour of the old mill, which is Perth's oldest industrial building. So I guess they get to experience old and new technology together. They have the opportunity to learn about AV systems and sensors, so GPS, odometry, LiDARs. We do a workshop with them to explain the technology. They also get an understanding of coding and road safety using robotics, and take a virtual reality trip on RAC's rescue helicopter. And then we end the day with an opportunity for the school kids to come together in groups and develop a sculpture around the future of mobility and how they see that around safe, sustainable and connected communities. So it's really an opportunity, I suppose, for them to apply everything they've learned through the day and turn that into some sculpture that they can talk to. So we do see that they are highly engaged. I mean, obviously there's varying levels of knowledge between different groups. We're targeting this at year 5 and 6. But overall, I would say that they are, particularly across the environmental aspects of automated electric vehicles, and particularly interested in that. And I think there's a very high level of acceptance with the technology. And you see that probably the most when they take a ride for the first time in the automated vehicle. And I suppose just the speed at which they become comfortable and the questions, the very good questions that they ask throughout that journey.
So this is a question that I'm going to ask all of our guests. And from your experience and understanding, where do you think, or what do you think of these driverless technologies will be the first to market in a wide-scale commercial offering, and why do you think that?
Well, again, I don't like to make predictions, and it's something that I apply to fuel prices as well. But I personally think if we're looking at level 4 and 5, when it exists, technology, I think it's going to present itself as on-demand fleets. So probably owned by organisations operating in urban areas and defined precincts. I really can't see, as we move beyond level 2 and 3, that private ownership will be viable for some time due to cost, but probably more so just the complexity of owning and maintaining all of the sensors and systems that would go into a fully driverless vehicle. I would just reference freight. I mean, obviously there's a wide body of evidence that early commercialisation in terms of freight might be possible just due to the efficiencies that could be gained. I think in theory that's probably absolutely right, but within Australia I think it's interesting to note that we actually haven't had any major freight trials launch yet, despite there being some indications that that would happen before now. So I'm talking about truck platooning trials, for example. So, I think that's certainly an area to watch, but it's, it hasn't happened yet.
So, Anne, that's been great. I really appreciate your time in joining us here at ADVI Connect and the insights that you've provided to myself and our audience in especially that gain from running your own trial, like a really hands-on approach over the last 3 years in particular. So obviously you've shared a lot of information about what you've done and what you're planning to do. If people listening want to get in contact with you or find out more about the work that you're doing, what is the best way that you want people to contact you?
Well, thanks, Rita. I'm happy to do that. Look, thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk about our program and the work of the RAC team today. As you know, we've been involved in ADVI for quite a few years now, and we greatly value the work that you're doing to, I suppose, advance this industry. In terms of contact information, the best place for people to get more information is through RAC's website, which is www.rac.com.au/Intellibus. On the website, we've got information about all of our programs, as well as contact information if anyone would like to speak to us about any questions that they have. And as always, we're really always very happy to hear from people and perhaps organise an opportunity for them to participate in our trial.
Well, that's lovely of you to say, and you've been a great supporter of ADVI, as you mentioned, and we really appreciate your insight. So thanks very much again. I'm sure you will agree with me that this has been a very informative session with Anne Still, and hearing about the work that RACWA has been doing in Australia, and particularly in South Perth with their trial. Thank you for joining me on this ADVI Connect interview. Please go to our website to find out more information about the ADVI Connect series and how to become an ADVI partner. Goodbye.